Good evening, Tansei Anine. Welcome to APTN National News. I'm Daryl Stranger. A longtime firefighter has been seriously injured while trying to save homes in the East Prairie Métis settlement in Alberta. APTN's Chris Stewart spoke to a family member on his status.
Frankie Payu has been a firefighter for 14 years. But this fire was different. It made its way onto the East Prairie Métis settlement, and he defended his home and family against it. When it got too close, he told his pregnant girlfriend Melody to take their 3 kids to safety. Their youngest, a 7-month-old, was still recovering from kidney surgery 3 days prior. Frankie stayed to fight the fire. Jessica Supino is Melody's cousin.
Frankie had done everything that he could to try to save their house by cat guarding it and spraying his house down. And in that time, he went over to help another house, and within that 15 minutes, their house had burned.
After hearing their house burned down, Jessica started a GoFundMe for Frankie and his family. On May 14th, Frankie was cutting down a burned tree when it crashed down on his head and shoulders. He was taken to hospital and later airlifted to the University Hospital in Edmonton. His injuries were extensive. He remains in a coma.
He had liver and kidney damage, broken ribs, and they were waiting for a spinal surgeon to come and see how bad his C7 in his spine was, how badly fractured it was.
That makes the GoFundMe even more important. More bills are expected. Jessica says donations and prayers are helping, but they are far from their goal.
They've lost everything. They have nothing left. So they lost their home that they owned, and that's gonna take quite a bit, and just being able to raise their family is gonna take quite a bit.
Chris Stewart, APTN National News, Edmonton.
Well, the wildfires are having devastating impacts on some First Nations communities in Western Canada. Smoke and low visibility are making it difficult for fire crews to battle the fires. APTN's Lee Wilson reports.
On Sunday in the Northwest Territories, evacuation orders were issued for the town of Hay River and Katlodachi First Nation due to a wildfire in the area. The orders impacted over 3,500 residents in both communities. KFN members were bused or drove to evacuation center in Yellowknife 5 hours away. A social media post by the First Nation said everybody was evacuated from the community. Fires devastated Katlodachi. According to NWT fire authorities, approximately 15 buildings in the First Nation were damaged by yesterday. Crews that were battling the fire had to pull out due to dangerous conditions from smoke and low visibility. Air tanker groups remain active. In British Columbia, there are 63 active wildfires, according to BC Wildfire Service. Prince George Fire Centre is where most of the fires are burning. The area spans from central to northeastern BC. 41 fires are burning while facing severe drought conditions. The Stoddart Creek wildfire is now 1,200 hectares after being detected this weekend. Yesterday, Doig River and Blueberry River First Nations faced evacuation orders. The city of Fort St. John was issued an evacuation alert. According to BC Wildfire Service, fire crews pulled back from fighting fires at Stoddart Creek and Red Creek due to smoke and poor visibility. Lee Wilson, APTN National News, Kitimat.
Dramatic pictures and videos are coming out of northern Saskatchewan, where fires have led to an urgent evacuation of one community last night. The mayor of Buffalo Narrows says the community is surrounded by wildfires and they've been without power for 2 days. Leanne Sanders has the story.
These are scenes from the battle that the McCullum family fought last night, trying to save their cabin from a raging fire. The dramatic photos show how close the fire came, but miraculously, they managed to save it, with a picture from a flyover today showing the dwelling still standing. Sandy Erickson is the mayor of Buffalo Narrows and says others have not been so lucky, and some cabins have been lost.
They go there in the summer so they can practice their traditional culture, fishing, and we have still have trappers and fishermen and that in the community. Some of these cabins belong to seniors. I think our oldest one is in his 90s, and he jumped in his boat and went to stay in his cabin to get away from the fire. But his cabin is not in the fire zone.
Erickson says they had advised the elderly, pregnant, or those with breathing issues to leave, but then expanded it to an order.
We issued a mandatory evacuation yesterday because of the smoke. You couldn't see your hand in front of your face.
Erickson estimates around 500 people have left the community so far, destined for Regina, as hotels in Prince Albert and Saskatoon are filled with evacuees from other communities. More are to be evacuated if the fires permit them to get out.
The smoke is the biggest concern right now. There is the danger of flying embers. That's how this fire got out of control. Like, it's jumping back and forth across the highway, 155, which is our only way in and out of our community.
Due to hot, dry conditions and the extreme fire risk that covers most of northern Saskatchewan, a provincial fire ban has been put in place for the areas north of Highway 16, just days ahead of the May-long weekend. According to the government, 28 wildfires are burning. To date, there have been more than double the number of wildfires usually seen at this time of year in Saskatchewan. Leanne Sanders, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
A Mi'kmaq family is outraged after their loved one died of pneumonia while in custody in a Nova Scotia provincial jail. They are calling for a public inquiry and filing a lawsuit against the province. Angel Moore reports.
Kathy Denny went on this MMIWG walk in Sydney, Unama'ki recently, but this year something was missing. Her daughter, Sarah.
It feels different, a little void.
Sarah Denny of the Eskazoni First Nation was 36 years old and a mother of 2 when she died on March 26 of double pneumonia, 5 days after she began a 5.5-month sentence at the Central Nova Scotia Correctional Facility, known as Burnside, for violating house arrest. Kathy is calling for a public inquiry. She wants to know why her daughter did not receive medical treatment.
What's going on there? Why did my daughter die? What needs to be improved in their services?
Sarah was staying at her mom's house under house arrest for 6 months for an assault conviction. But Kathy was diagnosed last August with terminal cancer and says Sarah had the flu. So because of those reasons, Sarah was staying with her boyfriend, which breached her conditions.
She wanted to change her address to over there, but her probation officer didn't let her. But she kept getting sick, and she was afraid to get me sick.
Kathy says when police arrested Sarah on Sunday, March 19th, she told them Sarah was sick.
She might have COVID, or she might be septic. She needs to see a doctor. And the officer told me, okay, we'll take care of that.
The last time Kathy spoke to her daughter was on Tuesday, March 21st, when Sarah called from Burnside.
I said, did you see the doctor yet? And she goes, no, not yet.
On Sunday, March 26, police came to Kathy's house.
They knocked on the door and said, what's going on? Sarah died. He looked at me and Sarah died. I said, what?
Irina Whithall, Sarah's older sister, is devastated.
No one should be burying their little sister. She's supposed to bury us.
Kathy says drumming helps Sarah cope with mental illness and addictions. Kathy has now picked up Sarah's drum and will fight for a public inquiry.
And we're going to scream and complain and write letters to everybody that can listen to us.
Emma Halpern of the Elizabeth Fry Society says when there is a death of a person in custody in Nova Scotia, the Department of Justice conducts an internal review, and the findings are kept private. Halpern says that is problematic.
No one ever learns about what happened and how we can prevent this type of horrific death from happening again.
Halpern says Sarah did not belong in Burnside.
It just really forces the question of, you know, how are we failing Indigenous people so much still after everything that we know? Because we know so much better. We do know so much better.
Kathy says doctors gave her 6 months to live. It is now 8 months, and she says she will fight to the end to find out what happened to Sarah.
If I pass away next week, next month, doesn't matter. I have a large family that is willing to pick up this drum. They want changes too. My family is angry. Her friends are angry. We want changes, and we want an inquiry.
Before she passed away, Sarah gave her oldest son, Chase, a piece of advice.
I remember her telling me that she wants me to be better than her. She's like, son, promise that you'll be better than me. I was like, all right, I'll do my best.
The Nova Scotia Department of Justice said in an email statement to APTN News they cannot comment due to privacy. Angel Moore, APTN National News, Eskazoni First Nation.
All right, we have to put a short pause on the program, but still to come, we'll speak with the new chief of the Thunder Bay Police Service. Welcome back to APTN National News. The Trudeau government is moving ahead on promised changes to Canada's bail system. Justice Minister David Lametti announced some of them at a press conference in Ottawa on Tuesday, but the Conservatives are already calling them a failure. APTN's Fraser Needham has more.
Before the Liberals had even started their press conference on Bill C-48, Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre slammed the government bail reforms as too little too late.
I don't know why Justin Trudeau is not interested in Indigenous victims of crime. In Saskatchewan, the killer, this Sanderson, he had 60 prior violent convictions, and Trudeau's catch and release system let him out to massacre an entire community. Is it because they're First Nations that he's not interested in taking action? What has he done since that happened?
At their press conference, Justice Minister David Lametti announced Bill C-48. It aims to tighten up Canada's bail system. It is in response to pressure from police and provinces who say it is too easy for repeat violent offenders to get bail. At the same time, Lametti says C-48 shouldn't affect how Gladue factors are used.
It should not, in the sense that Gladue factors are applied at bail hearings, but it does not change the fundamental premise of bail, which is you have a right to bail unless you are a threat to flee, unless you're a threat to public safety, or if the administration if the confidence of the justice system will be brought into question.
Lametti also said, under the proposed changes, repeat violent weapons offenses and repeat intimate partner violence will find it more difficult to get bail. He is hopeful the changes won't increase the overrepresentation of Indigenous people behind bars.
We hope that we have threaded the needle with respect to not going too far in terms of either clogging up the bail system or having a disproportionate impact on groups that are already overrepresented in the criminal justice system generally. We've tried to do that by remaining targeted and focused.
Fraser Needham, APTN National News, Ottawa.
A parliamentary committee continued its study of Bill C-29. The legislation was drafted to create a National Council for Reconciliation. According to witnesses from national Indigenous organizations, the process to create the act and appoint persons to sit on its board is flawed. During Tuesday's meeting of the Senate Standing Committee on Indigenous Peoples, they all expressed the need to have more consultation and inclusion in the process. According to Inuit Teperi Kanatami President Natan Obed, he received the bill just 2 days before it was voted on in the House.
In 2018, the interim board did have a recommendation that the legislation be co-developed with national Indigenous organizations, and that has not happened. So we're dealing with the aftermath of advice that was not taken, and also exuberance when there should have been, by any calculation, a concern. I think this country still does not understand reconciliation in relation to rights, and so this legislation preys on that ignorance.
Today is Darcy Fleury's first full day on the job. Fleury, who is Métis, was officially sworn in as the new chief of the Thunder Bay Police Service on Monday. It may seem like the challenges the new chief faces are insurmountable, but Fleury feels ready to take on the job. He joins us now from Thunder Bay. Police Chief Fleury, thank you so much for being with us today, and congratulations on officially taking on the new role. Now, you've spent the last few weeks, if not months, meeting with community members. What were some of the common issues you were hearing?
Well, some of the things that I've heard, first of all, thank you very much for having me. And yeah, some of the things I've heard from the beginning is really some of the ongoing issues that the community, the First Nations community, for example, have had with the history of their history of being treated, how they feel unfairly here, and that type of thing. So we've had some really great conversations about what was the past, where we are from that, what we've learned, and really taking a really good conversation forward as to things that we need to work together on to really push and make this community safe.
But now the expectations here are huge, both for yourself and the department. Do you feel any pressure to meet the calls for change?
Not really. No, I don't really feel much pressure. I believe that the approach that we're taking is including everybody in the programming that we have in place, or plan that we do have planned as we go forward in providing service to the community. So I don't really feel a lot of pressure that way, because I believe that working with the community is the best way to go and really have their input and approach and buy-in to what we want to do. So I think that's something that I have a bit of a background in and I feel confident in. So I'm really think that that's going to be something that's not going to cause much grief, and really will help all the community as we push forward new changes in the way we approach things in the department.
Now, Police Chief Fleury, are there any changes to the way the service operates that you're eyeing right now in the short term?
A couple of things. I know that we've already done a few things already as far as equity and diversity and inclusion. I'd like to also maybe have a program where we have an advisory committee to the chief and to the organization on that piece. Also First Nations advisory, and have them both internally and externally to provide some input as to what we want to do as far as ensuring that some of the issues that we've had in the past, or not necessarily issues, but concerns that have been raised in the past, have been addressed, and that we are really pushing it forward as far as making those changes and having them involved in having a voice in how we do that.
And last one for you here. What does a successful and respected Thunder Bay Police Service look like to you?
I think that's going to be one of those things that have now probably a few months down the road where we start seeing, like, honestly, what I've seen in this department is a lot of good people coming to work every day to do the best they can. And I think what we need to do is have that outreach to the communities to ensure that they see the great work that's being done here, that people really do care, and that we work as partnerships, we work as collectively. There are some social issues, some health issues that we need to address, make sure that we are working well together to put the people that are in harm a different path, so they're not just a justice issue. And I think that will be a success if we do that, and we should let people know that our people are committed to work with those agencies and those groups, and to really achieve that. I think that's going to be a positive for us.
All right, we'll have to leave it there. Police Chief Fleury, thank you so much for taking some time for us today.
You're welcome. Thank you.
All right, we have to step aside one more time. A preview of tonight's Face to Face is next. Welcome back. It's time now for our photo of the day. Toby Wilson from Norway House Cremation in northern Manitoba sent in this great photo. She was able to capture a water bomber coming around to get a refill as it battles fires in northern Manitoba. We certainly hope everyone stays safe during this time of year. All right, now let's take a look at tomorrow's weather forecast. Beginning on the East Coast, 12 degrees in St. John's and 8 in Charlottetown. 5 degrees in Cartwright and 0 degrees in Kuujjuaq. 10 degrees in Quebec City and 8 degrees in Val-d'Or. Clear and 14 in Toronto and clear 9 in North Bay. Sunshine and 9 in Wawa and 8 degrees in Thunder Bay. 7 degrees in Churchill and 13 in Norway House. 15 and some rain in Barons River and 27 degrees in Winnipeg. Clear and 20 in Regina and 20 in North Battleford. 13 degrees in Buffalo Narrows and 17 in Stony Rapids. As we make our way west, a clear and 22 in High Level and 22 in Peace River. 21 degrees in Edmonton and 20 in Calgary. 29 degrees in Campbell River and 27 in Bella Coola. 21 degrees in Prince Rupert and 26 in Fort Nelson. 20 degrees in Beaver Creek and Rock Rivers, looking at 13. 21 in Norman Wells and 27 in Fort Simpson. 17 degrees in Fort McPherson and 15 in Colville Lake. -4 in Cambridge Bay and 7 in Whale Cove. -2 in Arctic Bay and 0 degrees in Iqaluit. Well, we are just weeks away from the 4th anniversary of the release of the final report by the National Inquiry into Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women and Girls. Ali Baer is a 3rd Vice Chief of the Federation of Sovereign Indigenous Nations in Saskatchewan. She recently called on the Prime Minister to do more. She is Dennis Ward's guest on tonight's new episode of Face to Face.
There's a complete lack of implementation of the 231 calls to justice from that inquiry. And it is seen in the statistics, it is seen in the amount of people, Indigenous peoples and women and Two-Spirited, that continue to face violence and harm. Right here in Winnipeg, what's happening in the landfills with the 4 women that were found there. Like, the inquiry is coming on its 4th year anniversary, and we continue to see things getting worse.
And you can watch that episode just a few minutes from now, so stick around. That is all we have for you on this May 16th edition of APTN National News. If you missed anything from our show tonight, our website, aptnnews.ca, has you covered. For all of us here, thank you so much for joining us. Miigwech, Kinanaskmatan, and have a great night.